Rob Carson won the toss, and he's reading toss-ups in the first half. You guys didn't even know about that process.
All right, we didn't even think about this ready to play. Yes. All right, you want to check your buzzers? All right. Okay, are the people that aren't actually, Fred got bored and stopped writing your team name. Are you guys ready to play?
I guess.
All right, check your buzzers. Well, let's do it. Toss-up 1. The Count of Regla, a king of this commodity, sparked the first American labor strike by cutting wages for workers in Real de Monte. Important colonial sources of this commodity included the so-called mountain that eats men and the Mexican region of Zacatecas. During the colonial era, galleons regularly carried this commodity. Silver? Silver is correct. 20 points.
You're right. In this film, which was inspired by the novel The Invention of Morel, Giorgio Albertazzi's character continuously loses the game of Nim, which is played by removing cards matching to photographs for 2 points each. Name this film, directed by Alan Rene, in which a man repeatedly tries to convince a woman that they had met at the title Czech spa town 1 year previous. Yes, it's a title Czech spa town. I'm not kidding.
I might have heard this once. No answer.
That is not the answer. What do you say? It is Last Year at Marienbad. Last Year at Marienbad is set in a hotel in this country. But in this country's new wave movement, there are included films like Breathless and Jules and Jim.
France.
Do you think there's a dude named Jules from France?
You're right.
Yes.
You're right. This French new wave director was responsible for the 400 Clothes, the movie, not like. Anyway, his adaptation of Fahrenheit 451 starred Oscar Werner, but much of this may have made Bradbury in the audience. It did not feature mechanical hounds. Yes, Marcel Truffaut is 20 points. Well done.
Toss-up 2. After this figure's death, the blood from his body gave rise to a tree which bore stones fruit that resembled cherries. This man is the subject of a fragmentary song by Stesichorus, who describes him as having 6 hands, 6 feet, and wings. After his death, Hera sent a gadfly to prevent a hero from retrieving this man's possessions. To reach this son of Caloroi and Chrysaor, a hero rode in a giant god. Your answer. That is not correct. You have chosen wrong. The goblet made of gold, which he obtained after shooting an arrow at Helios. This giant lived on the red island of Erythea, where his most notable possessions were managed by his herdsman Eurytion and the 2-headed dog Orthrus. Immediately before finding the girdle of the Amazons, Heracles spent a year retrieving the catalog for 10 points. What giant monster?
Garyon.
Garyon is correct.
Yeah, but it's always the other one. Fundamental rule of Quizzical. The 1/f or flicker form of this phenomenon is sometimes called the pink version because its power spectral density is greater at the pink end of the visible spectrum than at the blue end of the visible spectrum. And this phenomenon can be caused by fluctuations or quantization of charge. This phenomenon is a random fluctuation in an electronic signal or any signal. Really. It is noise. Noise is said to be white when its power spectrum is independent of this quantity. The speed of a light wave is equal to this quantity times the wavelength. The units out. When averaging several electronic measurements, the signal-to-noise ratio increases with this function of the number of measurements in general. See, because it's approximately Gaussian for a binomial distribution with a larger number. You know this, right? Come on, guys. What do you say? You're right. You did know it. You get 30 points. Good job.
Don't apologize. Just do better next time. Also, 3, I'm not sure what this first sentence means, but maybe you are. The big letter in a term symbol is strictly determined by this quantity. It turns out you are! 20 points!
These science dudes, man, they're ruining the game. You notice this heresy is named for a man who objected to Bishop Felix of Apatunga's consecration of Sicilian. Named this heresy, originating in North Africa. It held that priests who had previously made sacrifices to Roman emperors or pagan gods could not validly administer the sacraments. It is the Donatist heresy. The Donatists were upset with those priests administering this sacrament in particular. It's the process of initiating a person into Christianity. It is usually administered with water. To rule on the Donatist matter, this ruler appointed Miltiades, but not that one, who concluded that the sacraments were actually valid contra the Donatists. A document in the false decretals claims that this man had given the Western Roman Empire to the Pope. You have earned 30 points for Constantine. Well done. We didn't even think of this.
Oh, I see. Already forgot. You did not come up with a memorable team name. 2004, to support their thesis that there was once a Proto-Sapiens language, Bengtson and Rulin posited 27 global types of this concept. This concept gave its name to Mark Forsyth's circular scroll through the English language. This concept, which titles Isidore of Seville's medieval dictionary, also names a fact. Etymology? Etymology is correct for 20 points.
You needed that one, sir. Good job. One of these proteins labeled G is named for the fact that it's activated by cyclic GMP, G for fermentation. Name these enzymes. They activate most downstream signaling cascades by phosphorylating a wide array of target proteins. Kinases is correct. The NAP kinase signal transduction pathway, KSR, acts as one of these protein complexes. They greatly speed up the response to a signal by attaching themselves to many of the downstream effectors. It is not a promoter. What do you say? What do you think about this? It is a scaffold or scaffold protein, yes. Finally, although protein hormones require complex signal transduction pathways, these lipid hormones don't, because they pass right through the cell membrane. These compounds they are steroids. 20 points, 10 on the steel.
Mandatory drug testing will take place after the match.
Wait for that.
Yeah, we're good. 2005, this adjective appears in the title of a novel which follows 3 generations of wine distillers as they experience. Red is correct for 20 points. Red
He's doing it. He's heating up, guys. During the Kulturkampf, Bismarck, yes, that one, told the Reichstag, we will not go to this place. In this Italian castle, outside of which Henry IV kneeled for 3 days in the snow. That potential walk to this castle resulted in Gregory VII briefly reversing Henry's excommunication. Canossa is correct. The castle of Canossa was owned by a countess with this name, who had backed Pope Gregory against Henry V during the investiture controversy. Another woman with this same name ensured her son's succession to the English throne through the Treaty of Wallingford. Yes, correct. And finally, the investiture controversy was eventually ended by a concordat signed in this German city. Martin Luther was questioned at a 1521 diet, also in this city. Worms. All dirty. Well done.
2006. One of this man's daughters refused to change her shirt until his siege of Ostend was complete, a campaign which took 3 years. By the Peace of Verbon, this monarch withdrew his support from the Catholic League. This king's anti-Morisco policies sparked a revolt put down by Don Juan of Austria. He married Elizabeth of Valois, the daughter of Henri II of France, as a condition of the Treaty of Cateau Cambrésis. Fire ships were used against a military force launched by this monarch. Philip II is correct. You get 10 points.
It's the plot of Don Carlos. The second good one. Good ones. You get a bonus. This king annoyed the Puritans by allowing activities such as Whitsun ales and dancing on Sunday, or the Sabbath, for 10 points each. Name this monarch who was presented with the request of 1,000 Puritan ministers in the millenary petition. This monarch's intolerance for Catholicism made him the target of Robert Catesby.
James.
It is James for 10 points. The demands of the military petition were discussed at a conference in this palace, which led to the commission of the King James Version of the Bible. King Henry VIII seized this palace from Cardinal Wolsey after Wolsey fell from favor and died. It is Hampton Court. During the reign of James I, a group of English Puritans set off from England to Plymouth, Massachusetts, on this ship. You may have heard of it. They signed a namesake pact. Compacts are pacts. I had to throw them a curveball. You get all 30. Good job.
James I can pry my wits on ales for my cold dead hands. the moon had set, the dogs are asleep, is part of an A major fantasy on this country's airs. A fast, syncopated 2-4-meter dance from this country appears in the finale of the composer's first piano concerto in E minor. A coda with the rhythm of a dance from this country is part of the last of a set of variations on La Ci Darem la Mano by a composer from this country. The meter of a 3-4 dance from this country is used in A major and A flat major. Poland is correct, and you still get 20 points. Look at that.
Wow, that's Poland. Joseph Ryder Darby drew from his Grand Tour of Italy and imagined one of these events over 30 times in this type of natural event. Also depicted in an 1862 painting of Cotopaxi commissioned by James Lennox. Karl Ryleov depicted terrified people looking up at one of these events in The Last Day of Pompeii. I'm afraid it's an extinction. No, it's a volcanic eruption. A blood-red sun reflects on a lake below that depiction of Cotopaxi erupting by this artist. This artist's 1855 painting of Cotopaxi depicts the mountain peacefully smoldering. What do you got? No, it's not. Other team was very good football. It is church. For 10 points on the steel. They stole your stuff, dude. You don't want to do that? The Met owns Church's 1871 painting of the ruins of this building. The Elgin marbles were controversially removed from this building in the early 19th century, sort of. It is the Parthenon. It's 20 and 10 on the steel.
Toss of 8. This man, at Gelman, explained the CP violation of the weak force using a vector.
Feynman.
That's right, dude. You get 20 points.
Like my advisor says, when I saw Dick Feynman do this or that, he loves doing that. He's like, yeah, okay, you studied under Richard Feynman, my advisor. Thanks a lot, dude. Have a bonus. This author stated that politics is power in his account of the 1968 Democratic nomination convention entitled Miami and the Siege of Chicago. He named this author, who also adopted the persona of Aquarius to cover the moon landings of a fiber on the moon, Spanmore. Pulitzer Prize for a book about a march on the Pentagon. It is Miller. Mailer's nonfiction novels include one about Gary Gilmore, who is sentenced to death for killing 2 men during an armed robbery that he committed while out on parole. Name that novel. It is The Executioner's Song. And finally, Mailers of Women and Their Elegance is an imaginary memoir of this actress, a wife of playwright Arthur Miller, whose last completed film, The Misfits, had its screenplay written by Miller. It is Marilyn Monroe. You've earned 30 points. Well done.
Toss of number 9. In 2015, Snarkitecture filled a museum in this country with 1 million translucent balls to create the installation The Beach. It is this country. You get 20 points.
Heck yeah! Headphones. This play was based on an affair that the author had with a newscaster named Joan Bakewell. They identify this play, which employs reverse chronology in the final scene, or first scene, I don't know. The literary agent Jerry professes his love for Emma at a party that she's holding with her husband, Robert. It is Betrayal, in this play by the same author as Betrayal. I wonder what the answer to part 3 could be, guys. The Borders, Goldberg, and McCann take Stanley away to receive special treatment from Monty. Earlier, Stanley received a drum from Meg during the title event.
The birthday party.
It's my birthday too, yeah. The Betrayal and the Birthday Party were written by this British playwright, who also wrote these screenplays for the French Lieutenant Woman. He talked like this. Having Gus receive orders from the title device in this man's play, The Dumb Waiter. That's how he talked before he died of throat cancer. Yes, you get 30. Good job.
Alright, toss of 10 before we change a whole bunch of stuff on you. A character in this novel believes that watches are silly gadgets and keeps time by transferring peas between 2 jars constantly. Thought I was the only one. Could be. At the conclusion of this novel, a dragged-looking spaniel? Probably a ragged-looking spaniel, but maybe someone dragged him. Somersaults like a pancake. Who knows? That spaniel somersaults like a pancake after it is shot by a character whose shooting rampage kills
The play?
the play. You get 20.
Okay, the reason I...
A fine buzz, sir.
Don't do that.
Herbert Butterfield, yeah, only we can talk about script. Herbert Butterfield criticized academics for always evaluating events through the modern lens of progress in his book, disparaging this subject's Whig interpretation. In this academic discipline, it studies the past.
History?
Yeah. This German founder of absolute idealism distinguished the original reflective and philosophical modes of history in his lectures on the philosophy of history, in which he also argues that history reflects the spirit's growing awareness of its own freedom.
Okay, so like Hegel wrote about history. Hegel.
Yeah, that's it. In the 1840s, Thomas Carlyle popularized this theory, which claims that all of history can be basically understood through the actions of influential individuals like Napoleon.
Great man theory.
It is the great man theory. You get all 30 points on the bonus, and we've reached halftime of this exciting All-Star game. Do you want to lob any protests about the first half? There's a protest over there. Yeah, I want to rule. He's bored. You're protesting on the questions, how do you rule it? Yeah, I can announce that all protests and all questions were denied in the first half. Do you want to protest any questions? I'm calling time on your protest window. The halftime score, people who are not actually very good at Quiz Bowl, 240, or whatever Fred was saying to you about the Wu-Tang Clan. We didn't even really think about this. 230? 230? It's a cheese melter! It's a barber! Okay. Good luck to all teams in this second half, which starts with toss-up 11. Oh, I'm reading toss-ups now. Oh my god! In an artwork inspired by this conflict, a man in the pose of the Belvedere torso rests on a tree with his right arm missing. A woman is lighting a cannon's fuse while standing over. You not only were going to be wrong, but are wrong. And now you were wrong. Sorry. A woman is lighting a cannon's fuse while stepping over dead bodies in What Courage? Which was inspired by this conflict. In a painting set during this war, a man in a turban and orange pants is falling backwards off a charging white horse as another man is preparing to plunge a knife into him. This Is Worse is also set during this war and is part of a series of 82 prints inspired by this conflict. The plates of the disasters of war depict the destruction wrought by this conflict. In a painting set during this war, a man in a white shirt is raising his arms in a Christ-like pose to prepare for his death by firing squad. For 10 points, name this. It is the Peninsular War for 10 points.
Here's your bonus. Who's reading them? It's me. In this author's final novel, one of the title beings, named Arcade, seeks to overthrow Yaldabaoth, or God, with his fellow fallen angels. For 10 points each, name this author, whose novels include The Revolt of the Angels and Penguin Island. He won the 1921 Nobel Prize in Literature, hope you memorize that list, for his Gallic temperament. Until France is correct. France's seat on the Académie Française. It's France again!
Protest!
Everything is France. France's seat on the Académie Française was filled by this poet, who published his masterpiece La Jeune Parc after his great silence following the death of Stéphane Mallarmé. He also wrote The Graveyard by the Sea. Your protest is denied. Paul Valéry is correct. Until France's The Gods Are Athirst is set during this conflict, which is not the Peninsular War. Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities ends with Sidney Carton giving up his life in this 18th century conflict so that Charles Darnay can survive.
The French Revolution.
Pretty conflicted, I think. You get 30 points.
You guys fighting over whether there's a conflict?
Right.
Protest. He's protesting his own right answer. You're gonna deny that too? You too? No. Toss a phone. In a novel by this author, a child kills her brother's rabbits by forgetting to feed them, and later becomes obsessed with Thomas A. Kempis' imitation of Christ. Yes. You have earned 20 points for Missy Elliott.
Your bonus, the plaintiff in this case was a member of the Citizens Committee to test the constitutionality of the separate car law. They really should have come up with a catchier name. And would each name this 1896... That's a good point. Name this 1896 Supreme Court case which infamously upheld the standard of separate but equal.
Plessy versus Ferguson.
That's correct. This Supreme Court justice may have been influenced by his black half-brother Robert in casting the lone dissenting vote in Plessy. Like his grandson of the same name, this justice was known as the Great Dissenter. Frankfurt is correct. Harlan is correct. John Marshall Harlan Sr. This man served as Plessy's lawyer. His time as a carpetbagger inspired his novel A Fool's Errand, and he took a hard stand against the KKK as editor of The Continent. Would it help if I gave you more of his book titles?
Yes.
Bricks Without Straw? No? Alright. Yeah, Albion Tourget. But you're close enough. 10 each on the bonus.
Protest.
I'm denying your protest.
What?
Turn it out.
What is going on here?
Drop points.
So it was 10 and 20 on the seal. Do your job. Do your job. Toss up 13. I'm editing this one on the fly. Go. A fat type of this entity in the Cyclone dialect of the programming language C automatically performs bounce checking. You see how I did that? Big no? In some languages, the void type of this structure can be used on any data type whatsoever, but must later be cast explicitly. In C, an element of yes.
Like functions, methods.
No. No. Actually, none of your answers were right, which is kind of impressive. In C, an element of an array might be accessed using the plus plus operator as part of this thing's namesake form of arithmetic. Nodes in doubly linked lists are connected to the previous and subsequent nodes using two variables of this type in general. When a reference variable is accessed and its underlying data is invalid, Java throws a null exception named for this object. Yes, sir.
Pointer.
It is a pointer. It's what I am, and you have 10 points in the bonus.
Your bonus, which this is well distributed, for 10 points each, answer the following questions about generating a photorealistic scene in computer graphics. After building a model, an image may be produced using this technique, in which the namesake objects are cast from the image plane to determine what physical phenomena affect the scene.
Something having to do with polygons, I think. Polygonization.
Surprisingly, no. You guys? It is ray tracing. Not bad guesses, but not correct guesses. Ray tracing is one method of performing this task of converting scene data into an image. In another context, this is the process of converting code in a markup language, such as HTML, into a visual format.
Rendering.
That's right.
Yay!
You did it. Lens flares often artificially created as an example of these kind of effects whose production is valued in the digital film industry. Rhythm Cues and studios produced them for Life of Pi and The Golden Compass.
Special effects? Special effects.
Personally, my favorite type of effect. You get 20 points.
I'm practical effects.
That was good CS. Class of 14. A child's belief that he had seen his deceased mother prompted a 1788 riot against people of this profession in New York City. An innovation, yes?
Slaves.
No, sorry. It is not. It is not slaves. No, it's kind of the opposite of the profession. Notably, not getting paid. An innovation in this profession was introduced by the Sudanese slave Onesimus to the Puritan minister Increase Matter. A person of this profession was aided by the black preachers Richard Allen and Absalom Jones during a 1793 crisis in Philadelphia. Elizabeth Blackwell was the first woman to attain this profession in the United States. This profession was also shared by Benjamin Rush and Joseph Warren, who both died at Bunker Hill. People of this profession practice a technique known as a variolation or inoculation. For 10 points in this profession, whose members in colonial America often used knives to bleed patients. Yes, oh. It is doctors. You get 10 points.
Speaking of doctors, this researcher would often determine the contents of organs, possibly by using a knife, by implanting fistulas into various animals. For 10 points each, name this Russian psychologist who ran a series of experiments in which he taught dogs to salivate at the sound of a bell. Yes. Pavlov's work with dogs demonstrated this phenomenon in which an innate behavior becomes associated with a neutral stimulus since the neutral stimulus is paired with a potent stimulus. John Watson's little Albert experiment demonstrated this effect in humans. Classical conditioning is correct. This Russian psychologist argued that Pavlov's work did not apply to humans since humans learn actively from experience. His own theory of learning posits the zone of proximal development. Vygotsky's correct. You get 30 points.
Oh my God, Ski. This is toss up. That was a terrible joke. 15. I'm sorry, dude. You should teach me to do better jokes, because I'm in the zone of proximal development. In the book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar hangs out with wild beasts and is covered with this substance while he's crazy for 7 years on end. In the New English tradition of the Mass, Eucharistic prayer number 2 includes a petition to the Holy Spirit to make the gifts holy by analogy to this substance falling. In the first of a pair of opposite miracles, Deborah's successor collected a bowl of this substance after it, yes.
Sorry guys, honey.
That is wrong. I would have taken that same neg 3 years ago. You're almost there. After it falls upon a fleece, but not on the surrounding threshing floor. Gideon asks God for proof of his favor by sending this substance. In the book of Numbers, manna is described as being layered on top of this substance after it fell during the night. For 10 points, name this moisture substance, which can be found on the ground in the morning. It is just like dew. You get 10 points.
Here's your bonus. David Levy investigated why this piece of subject has 2 tied 8th notes instead of 1 quarter note. Fascinating. For 10 points each, name this contrapuntal Beethoven piece, originally the finale of his 13-string quartet. Stravinsky said it would be contemporary forever. Gross Fuga is correct. Violin parts unusually cross in the longing theme in the finale of this composer's 6th Symphony, which contains a 5/4 limping waltz and a bassoon solo marked with 6 keys. This composer died 9 days after that Pathétique symphony was premiered. Tchaikovsky is correct. In the concert Etude Un Sospiro, Franz Liszt wanted both hands to share the arpeggios and the pentatonic melody, so he alternated stem directions on this unusual notation. Organ music uses this notation for music played on the pedals. No, tablature is incorrect. You have an answer.
Number to base.
Much like this table, it has a 3rd staff. That was a worse go.
20 points on the bonus. Wait, that was it? I did it. I'm sorry. I'm not a huge on responsible development, but just. Toss 60. Rasmussen's aneurysm occurs in this structure. High pressure in this non-penile node structure can be treated by PDE5 inhibitors like Viagra. That's why it said non-penile, because I was going to say Viagra, and then you were all going to try to buzz with that. Or by inhibitors of endothelin 1. You thought I made that up? I would never do that out. No, it's not. Sorry. Good try. The wedge pressure is usually measured in this structure. It can be probed with a balloon-tipped catheter named for Schwann-Ganz. Stenosis of the valve that leads into this structure is a characteristic sign in the tetralogy of Fallot. Unusually, this structure normally has a pressure of only about 14 millimeters of mercury. This structure originates from the semiliver valve. This blood vessel receives the flow from the vena cava after it is pumped by the right side of the heart. Unlike the aorta, this artery is usually labeled new for 10 points in this artery, which carries deoxygenated blood and flows from the heart to the lungs. Yes, sir. I just taught my 7th graders about the pulmonary artery. You get 10 points.
Here's your bonus. For 10 points each, name these sources of iron ore in the United States. The Red Mountain, found near Birmingham, the largest city of this state, was a major source of iron ore. This state's capital is Montgomery. Alabama is correct. The principal source of iron ore in the U.S. is from this mountain range in Minnesota, you're damn right, whose name comes from the Ojibwe for giant mountain. The decline in iron mining in this range is the subject of the Bob Dylan song North Country Blues. Sure is. What you got? Nope. How about you guys?
I knew this once. I don't know now.
Still don't know. It's the Mesabi Range. Other sources of iron ore include the Gogebic Range and the Marquette Range, which are 2 mountain chains found on this peninsula. The Mackinac Bridge links this peninsula with the rest of the state.
Yeah,
It's the UP. You get it's surprisingly not. That's the ACF National team found out. So you get 20 points in the bonus.
Yeah, ACF Nationals script moment. Michigan prompt. The Lower Peninsula of Michigan? Yes, it was a member of Team Michigan who did that. It was really fun. This is awesome. Berkeley Open Infrastructure for Network Computing Software was originally developed for this kind of initiative, which is the subject also of the 2nd largest distributed computing initiative known after folding it home. The principle of plenitude provides a philosophical basis for this kind of effort. In 1980,
like finding extraterrestrial life.
you receive 20 points. You have found them. They were out there for you.
Here's your bonus. This collection opens with a frame tale that can be cut out and folded into a Mobius strip, which technically you can do with any book page. For 10 points each, name this short story collection by John Barth. Its title story is a non-linear narrative about a self-conscious boy named Ambrose who gets stranded inside a boardwalk attraction. Answer, please. That is not correct. And I think it's called Lost in the Funhouse. Barth discussed this post-1950s literary movement in his essay, The Literature of Exhaustion. Authors working in this genre often employ metafiction, and other examples of it include Catch-22. Postmodernism is correct. Barth's Night Sea Journey uses a sperm cell who says, "I have seen the best swimmers of my generation go under," to parody this poem, the subject of an 1957 obscenity trial, which debuted at the 6th Gallery reading. Owl. Yes, Owl is correct. You get 20 points.
You gotta read it, I have seen the best swimmers of my generation go under. This is toss-up 18, I guess. In a portentous email, this man wrote, "The future is too good to waste on lies," to which his father, writing from Iowa, responded, as all fathers do by email in all caps, "Obey your conscience." A May 2009 photo of this man in plain clothes published by The Guardian enraged his superior, Clinton Baker. This man talked about his desire to intentionally trigger a dust wound to journalist Mark Bull. This man's lawyers unsuccessfully motioned to release documents from his case following repeated claims that he was a traitor from Donald Trump. This man spent extensive time with the Haqqani Network and is the subject of the 2nd season of, yes, it is Bo Orgall, 10 points for us.
That's what I was about to say. It's how you play football.
Here's your bonus. The 4 branches of this collection of stories were compiled by Lady Charlotte Guest, who also translated them from Welsh into English. For 10 points each, name this collection of Welsh mythological stories whose heroes include Quill, Lord of Dyfed, and From the Blessed. The Mabinogion is correct. The only character to appear in all 4 branches of the Mabinogion is the son of Quill and Rhiannon, who was raised for a time by Tiernan after he mysteriously disappears from Dyfed. Ryder is correct. The 3rd branch of the Mabinogion is named for this son of Lear, who was able to negotiate the release of Pryderi and Rhiannon after capturing a fat mouse and ransoming it in exchange for them. He probably had the same origin as a similarly named Irish sea god. Yeah, that's right, it got harder.
You thought you were back
Komen?
That's not correct. No, it's Monowidan. You get 20. Let's do a score check with 2007. Oh, sorry, yeah. No, this is 2000.
Looks like it's 380 all. Good thing you got that first hard part. That was awesome. Otherwise you'd be losing. This is toss-up 19. The protagonist of this book trips and rolls down a hill after meeting his love interest outside a county fairground. At the end of this book, the protagonist departs on a train with his mind, quote, carried away by the growing passion for dreams, end quote. Kate Swift, a school teacher, yes, is 20 points. You've read some books, good job.
Here is your bonus, which is not about Welsh mythology. This man perished during the Battle of Cerro Corá in a war which left his country's population in a state such that women outnumbered men 9-1. For 10 points each, name this, so it's the opposite of a Whistle tournament.
Yeah.
For 10 points each, name this dictator who led his country into the war of the Triple Alliance against Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay. Solano Lopez is correct. Francisco Solano Lopez led this country, whose history of repression under Alfredo Stroessner is documented in Archives of Terror, found in its capital, Asunción. Paraguay is correct. Francisco Solano Lopez's father, Carlos, was forced into hiding by this earlier Paraguayan dictator, who established a government based on Rousseau's The Social Contract, as you do.
Phrases you should know. Earlier Paraguayan dictator.
And that's nothing. You guys have anything?
I knew this. I wrote a question on this.
Mr. Paraguay. It is Jose Gaspar Rodriguez de Francia. Francia is what I need. It's Dr. France. It's Francia.
It was 20 points. Yeah.
Guys, you can still win it.
That was a rousing captain speech. It's 420 to 380 going also. Who's toss for 20? Unless it's tied, then I don't know what happened. 5? Or just, toss for 20. To find a victim of this action, the minstrel Blondel legendarily traveled around singing verses to a secret song. During this event, the victim told Henry VI, "I am born into a rank which recognizes no superior but God," after he was accused of having murdered Conrad of Montferrat. The victim of this event's loud complaints about bad chicken may have allowed Duke Leopold V of Austria to carry it out. This action was carried out against a man who was disguised as a Knight Templar on his way back from a campaign, yes, It is the capture. You're right.
Points so you need 30 to tie.
Do it.
And you do it. Here's your bonus. This dimensionless quantity is higher for fuels with more straight chains and thus longer ignition delay times. For 10 points each, name this property, which is a measure of a fuel's resistance to an uncontrolled release of energy or combustion.
Octane rating.
That is correct. Toluene, alcohol, and ferrocene are typically used as agents that are added to gasoline to prevent this phenomenon, the tendency to pre-ignite or combust before a spark. And please. Knocking is correct. This plant is often used to make ethanol that is added to create gasohol. You can also distill this crop to make bourbon whiskey.
Guys, what is bourbon?
Answer? No! Corn is correct. You ruined it. Others of that board is going to be so mad.
Pretty all-star game, guys. Final score rating because 430. People around us 30, people 410. Let's give one more big hit for all-stars. Eric Goldberg, Halton Rookie, Keon Yu, Ashton Ramaswamy, Ethan Russo, Ali Saeed, Ryan Goland, and Andrew Bajaj. Very good game. I hope you guys had some fun.
But like, I was like, we won't do anything. Yes, they're not.
How are we doing on time? That was too much fun.
Time to go.
It's time. 1 second, and I will be.
We're going to clear the stage really quickly, and then we're going to do the